And I'll go into some of the details of things that I kind of connect with, as well as some of the things that I assume other readers will connect with. But not saying that the book is bad. It's sad that we all can connect through this trauma that seems to be shared throughout the human experience. What's good people? Welcome to Whole Views. Thank you for clicking that thumbnail. My name is Corey, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. This is primarily a movie channel where we talk about movies. Sometimes we do firearms, sometimes we do video games, but today we're doing a book review. This is a book of poetry called For Every Me, written by Crystal Jolie. I was her high school teacher for about 3 of her high school years back when she went to Northwest, and I taught at Northwest in Southwest Louisiana. This would be maybe the second or third book that I'm reviewing, but this is the actually official second poetry book that I've done in the last 10 months. I sat down with author Skaza Rideau, who did his book over the summertime, and I'll be reviewing that one a little bit more in detail in the coming weeks. But this one, I didn't sit down with the author, but I do have some personal experience with her, and it did kind of enlighten some of the things that I read as I read through the book. So I'm gonna give you my overview and then some of my favorite things. Before turning one page in the book, I immediately noticed that she has a quote from one of the OG of OG teachers, Miss Priscilla Hunt Roberts. So that was a great thing to have a quote in the book from the most well-known English teacher from Northwest, probably in the school's history. It always pleases me and just makes me happy to see it when teachers get honored by their former students, and there's no educator I feel like deserves more flowers than Miss Priscilla Hunt Roberts. I just wish that I was in her presence more as a mature person as I am now, and I got to just see and observe more because she was such a master at everything she did. I'm just glad that she's honored here in this book. That alone makes it, worth flipping through, knowing that she had some influence on the writer of the book and knowing her influence on all the students that passed through Northwest hallways over the years. So it was cool to see just that little nugget right in the front. Talking about the book itself, this is kind of the overview. The book's focus is on mental health and mental health issues, and you could really feel it as you read. Like the topics are very weighty, and at the same time, the topics in the focus of most of the poems are very relatable, which is a great thing, but it's also a bad thing. So let's talk about why it's great. In the context of it being great, it's a very, very, very good thing that Crystal Jolie wrote about a bunch of experiences that almost anybody, male, female, black, white, can grab this book, read through it, and identify with some of the things that she's talking about in her poetry. The reason why I would say that it's bad, or I would use that word bad, is not because Crystal actually did anything negative. It's the fact that all the trauma that leads to loneliness, depression, stress, anxiety, all those things are things that are highly, highly relatable, and that's actually a bad thing in my opinion. It's sad to say that I know my wife, my mother, my father, myself, and some of my closest friends could probably read through this book and connect with different poems, or at least different lines in different poems, because there's so much negativity in the lives of all the readers that anybody can pick this thing up and connect with it, because we've all suffered those traumas. So it's highly relatable, and that's great. But at the same time, it's relatable for like some of the worst stuff. And I'll go into some of the details of things that I kind of connect with, as well as some of the things that I assume other readers will connect with. But not saying that the book is bad. It's sad that we all can connect through this trauma that seems to be shared throughout the human experience. When I talk about the previous author, Skaza, when me and him sat down and talked about the book, me and him had a big brother, little brother relationship for about 6 or 7 years that we were really, really close, working shoulder to shoulder together back in my Blockbuster days. With Crystal as the writer here, I know her family, I know her. I've had experience with her and one of her sisters as a teacher, student, teacher, family relationship. And from what I know of her, I know that yes, she may have experienced some rough things and she may have went through a rough patch mentally, but if I know her and she has that same tenacity that she had in high school, I know that this book, just writing the poetry down and going through the process of publishing it and putting it out, was probably a part of her healing process, which is another reason why I can recommend the book, because reading through it and knowing that people share your experiences is another big positive about it, even though it's sad that we all have those same experiences. So wrapping up the overview, if you're looking for something to connect with that can show you and prove to you, give you a little bit of evidence that if you're in a bad place mentally, that there is a way out of that and there is hope for the future, this is definitely something that you can look into, read up on, connect with to a certain extent, and see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So getting into my 3 favorites from the book. I want to go into the first one, which is Face. It is the first poem in the book, but immediately, because I've been with my wife for 20 years now, because I knew Crystal when she was in high school, because I've taught high schoolers for such a long amount of time, and I kind of specialize in becoming really personal with the people that I connect with, not all, but the people I connect with. I know that there's real life characteristics that people can all experience. Again, my wife, my mother, myself, I can see some of our own traits come up in Face because it's such a thing that we do every day. We put on a face and we go about the day. And I feel like that poem was right on the nose from what I remember of Crystal, as well as I can identify with some of my current students, my wife, a lot of people I know personally put on that face and go through the motions. And that's kind of what the heart of that poem was about to me, and I liked it. I connected with it. The second poem that I identified very strongly with was Anxiety. Again, that's pretty easy because I'm a person who is very anxious, and I look at different things that kind of can work me up or get me on edge. And the poem Anxiety, like each line, I was like, yeah, I can remember experiencing this, and yeah, I experienced this the other day. It's like a lot of different instances that the poem is talking about things that well up anxiety in a person, and there's so many people that can connect with so many of the lines in the poetry, if not the poem itself as a whole. So yeah, there's a lot there in that one poem that I read it. As soon as I read the title, I was like, oh man, this might hit hard. And it did hit hard for me, and it kind of hit close to home, just knowing that I can be triggered by some of the things that she wrote about. And the last poem that I would like to talk about is one of my favorites, and for a very negative reason would be Okay. And it's crazy how well she captured the essence of what I feel is Louisiana Southwest culture, like the way that we kind of create acceptance out of unacceptable situations. I feel like in recent time periods, like in the last, let's say 5 to 6 years, the Black culture in the area, Louisiana culture, we've done things to take strides to stand up against things that may not be acceptable and try to bring those things to light and kind of punish people for doing the wrong things and not just shrug it off. I feel like in the last few years, we've gone away from that, and we're actually trying to correct people and call people out for being wrong. But it's not widespread enough. I can't speak to it outside of the Black community that I'm a part of here in Southwest Louisiana, but I do know that it is a thing unique to where we live, that people can see wrong and know it's wrong, but brush it off because it's family doing wrong. It's an uncle doing wrong. It's a cousin doing wrong. And when I read that poem, I thought to myself, one, there's obviously some things about Crystal, and not just Crystal, but young women in the area that I don't know everything about, because again, personally, if you read the book and you read Okay, you would think to yourself like, man, you know about that? Like, no, I don't know about certain things that happen. But I'm not ignorant to the fact that some things do happen and people just kind of shrug it off and make it seem as if it's okay. And that was the kind of the message that I took away from that poem, and it stuck with me because I know I have 2 daughters that I'm raising as like, we really have to draw borders, right? We really have to draw the line and say, hey, if certain things happen, it's not okay. And I think that's the culture that she would like to foster, just based off what I know of her and what I've read in the book. And I hope that as a culture, we move forward in that way, like making things unacceptable, not just allowing things because it's family, or not just endorsing things because it's family. That's kind of the stance that I take on that one. And I really like the book overall, but those 3 were the 3 that really stood out to me. So the book is on sale on Amazon. I believe it's $9.99. I purchased this way back over the summer, and I put it to the side and said, as soon as I get some real time to sit down, read, analyze, I'm gonna do it with Crystal's book first, and then I'm gonna go back and go through Skies' one in more depth, because we talked about a few of his poems, but I didn't go through everything myself. So I'll be going through his. And again, if you like book reviews and talking about, more serious topics that might come up in poetry or other books, let me know. And there's some other stuff that's coming on the horizon with other local authors, because we have a lot of people popping up in the area that are being expressive and creative and putting their thoughts down on paper. So those are the thoughts here about that book. Again, it is on sale. It is on Amazon. Pick it up for $9.99. I highly recommend it if you enjoy poetry or if you know the author. That's always a good thing to support your local business people, your local creators. And I think this is a worthy cause to support. You know, she's talking about some real heavy hitting things that may have happened in the community. So give it a shot, man. I enjoyed it. And I think you will too, if you like poetry. That's all we got. Enjoy yourself, guard your heart, and go watch something good. Or go read something good. That's a better way to end. Read something.